Hi everyone, I'm SoftSeaside and welcome to this new video. Today we will not talk about my webcomic D&D or my art journey, but about a specific book series that I've become a fan of. I drew a fan comic for Gideon the Ninth, the first book of the Wacom book series depicting the infamous pool scene. At the time of this recording I have not read the third book, Nonagesimus the Ninth yet, so I would very kindly ask you to not comment any spoilers please. I also want to make some more videos about this book series in the future. Since the fourth and last book will come out soon, I really have to post all my video ideas for the book series before it's released. This comic in particular portrays a very important scene in the second half of Gideon the Ninth, so I recommend you reading the book first to not get spoiled, or don't look too much into the dialogue. By the way, this is not a serious review, I just want to talk about my reading experience in general, my thoughts about Gideon the Ninth and the drawing process of this comic. With that being said, let's dive in! Lately I've been back into reading books again. When I was younger I didn't read a lot of books at all. I could never concentrate long enough, books were expensive and I was way more into anime and manga. There are some books that really got me, like Percy Jackson, but I was never a bookworm. Even though I always wanted to be one, I thought that reading books is really cool. When COVID was at its peak in 2020, I listened to some audiobooks which helped a lot, but I got really into reading when I fell into the K-pop rabbit hole. Once again, you can never truly escape K-pop. And because my favorite idol at that time was a certified bookworm, I read a lot of his book recommendations. After I escaped my K-pop phase, until the next time, the reading got way less and I wanted to read again. One of my friends tried to convince me reading the Wacom series for a while. I have to admit that it took me some time to start this book. I'm not a big sci-fi fan, so I was a bit put off by the setting of space and medieval fantasy necromancer / sword fighting action. But I did start buddy reading this with my partner and I so do not regret it. Me, my partner and my friend made a group chat called Book Club where we live comment our reading experience while reading the book series, talk about other books, we comment other books, and it is really cool. Reading is way more fun when you can do it with other people. So what is Gideon the Ninth? Gideon the Ninth is the first book of the Wacom series written by Tamsyn Muir. As for the time being of this recording, I read the first two books, Gideon the Ninth and Harrowhark the Ninth, and I will very soon read the third book. I would classify it as a mystery, horror, fantasy, sci-fi book. My very personal summary of this book would be lesbian necromancers in space who fight with swords, slow burn and enemies to lovers. But I feel like this explanation doesn't give the book enough justice, so here comes my more serious summary. In the world of the Wacom series, there are 9 houses that are loyal to the Emperor, who is literally God, like really. The heirs of every house are necromancers and every necromancer has a cavalier, a swords person who protects their house necromancer. The story follows our protagonist Gideon, a strong young orphan with impressive sword skills who lives in the 9th house, a rundown hellhole with skeletons, strict nuns and lots of old people. She constantly tries to escape this place because she hates it there, but her childhood enemy, not friend, Harrowhark Nonagesimus, also known as the genius necromancer and heir of the 9th house who controls bones and skeletons, stops every of Gideon's escape attempts. These two hate each other and Harrow makes Gideon's life a living hell since their childhoods. One day the Emperor invited all the heirs of the 9 houses to become his lictors. These are immortal, powerful necromancers that serve the Emperor loyally as his right hand. Harrowhark wants to accept his invitation to help her house rise to glory again and offers Gideon freedom if she becomes Harrow's cavalier, since you can only go with a cavalier. So they follow the invitation of the Emperor to an old mansion where they are stuck with all the other necromancers and cavaliers of the 9 houses. Soon we find out that the secret to become lictors is bound to deadly trials and lots of mysteries. In the beginning I was very confused. The world building is really cool and complex and I love the writing style even if I was so freaking confused most of the time. I am not a native English speaker and the writing style is really complex yet super immersive. You are thrown into the world without any explanation or exposition dialogue, so reading this book was really challenging for me. There was a glossar at the end of the book that explained the world building, but I didn't want to spoil myself and I just constantly asked my friend when I didn't understand anything. The fact that I don't usually read sci-fi was probably not helpful either. I was completely whiplashed when I realized that the book is about necromancers and swords people but also takes place in space. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed it because I was very very immersed in the mysteries. I love to come up with my own theories and try to solve the solutions of the mysteries while reading along. Therefore, I always read extremely carefully to not miss any clues. I also had to read very carefully or I just wouldn't understand what was going on. After a while, it was fine though, and the book was really enjoyable. I also got used to the sci-fi fantasy setting soon enough. The characters in this book are so amazing. I almost loved every one of these characters. I especially liked the protagonists Gideon and Harrow and their relationship. Also Jean-Marie, best girl. The characters are so deep, unique, easy to remember and also flawed. Oh boy, so flawed. There are not a lot of good people in these books. They are so interesting and distinct, and even the side characters. Also, the Locked Tomb series is so freaking funny. In one moment you're horrified by the messed up stuff that is happening, and in the next moment you laugh because Gideon cites a meme. I don't understand how the author managed to be funny while also putting all this horrifying stuff in there, but she did it and I'm impressed. You can really tell that she's a fan in person. I'm a huge fan of a great mix between fluff and angst, and I think this book balanced it out really well. And can I just proudly say that I guessed the plot twist right from the beginning? I don't think it was super obvious since my friends didn't see it coming, but I feel like when you consume the same media that I consumed, it was an easy guess. I also think that the other mysteries were super interesting and very surprising. Okay, let's talk about the comic making process. Little shameless self-plug at this point. If you follow this channel for a while, you know that I'm a comic artist and that I'm currently rebooting my old webcomic that I worked on for 12 years. You can follow the process of the reboot on this channel by watching this playlist. Okay, back to this comic. Heads up, I will not talk in too much detail about how I drew the comic pages because I want to make a tutorial video one day where I talk in depth about my process, so stay tuned. I learned a lot while making this comic and also realized how much I miss drawing comics. I definitely like drawing comics more than drawing illustrations because I don't really feel creative enough for illustrations. Comics give me more options to show emotions and actions, and it is just my preferred method of telling stories. I use Clip Studio Paint EX for my comics. It has great comic functions, for example creating panels and speech bubbles, giving you an overview of all the pages, the possibilities to change the page's order, and even give a 3D preview mock-up so you can see how the comic will look if printed. I initially planned on drawing 6 pages, but I felt like it was not enough to show all the raw emotions in this scene, so it is now 13 pages long. This scene made me cry, so it deserves 13 pages, let's be real. I have to admit the process for this comic was a bit of a mess. When I draw comics, I usually add the dialogue first, then sketch the pages, add or delete pages or change the page order, and then I start to line and color. I also don't finish the pages in order but work on multiple pages at the same time, switching between pages when I'm stuck at one page. Even after starting the line art stage, I tend to change the order of pages, add more pages or move the panels to different pages when I feel like it will improve the reading flow. This method gives me a lot of liberty and which makes the drawing process very fluid and enjoyable for me, but it is also very vulnerable to mistakes. Since I don't actually own the book, I listened to the audiobook and read the ebook from the library. I didn't have original text. I asked my friend if I could make photos of a scene so I could extract the dialogue to the comic. I have some weird problems with processing information and words. I often forget words and letters mid-sentences when writing, and I also tend to skim over text that I'm supposed to read, especially when the text is in English, since I always had to switch between drawing and looking at my phone to read the scene from the photos from my friend. I got a lot of dialogue mixed up and made a lot of spelling mistakes. I also only worked on the comic in the evening, so I was always tired, and I didn't even notice that I partly forgot whole sentences from the dialogue. Wow, that's a new low, even for me. I also solely focused on the dialogue and drew from my memories, so the comic doesn't adapt the scene quite accurately. For example, there's a forehead kiss involved in the scene. I forgot the forehead kiss. I only noticed this after finishing the pages, and I really don't have the nerve to work on any more on this comic because I worked on it since January and I was tired. I worked on this comic for so long and my brain is sometimes weird. The perfectionist in me is so mad, but it's okay. I still like how the comic looks and there's always the privilege of artistic freedom, right? I'm trying to convince myself at this point. By the way, I avoid the Tumblr tag for Gideon the Ninth at all costs to avoid spoilers. I have only seen fan art that was sent to me by my friend or fan art that I've seen before I read the books. I don't really know a lot about the general fan interpretations of the character characters and mainly drew the characters by the vibes they gave off, the descriptions in the first book, and the vague impressions of fan art that I saw before I read the book. Like I said in my D&D video, I feel restricted when drawing fan art of visual media because of official art. I feel like I have to get the reference right and I can't take any liberties. There often is also so much great fan art, so I don't really have the desire to draw anymore. However, I have a lot of fun drawing book characters because I only have a written description which I have to follow and the rest is my own interpretation. But I probably should have made a reference sheet for my designs first because Gideon and Harrow look very different from page to page. It's also because I worked on this comic for so long that they don't really look consistent. The first page that I finished was the last page and Harrow looks so different in every panel, but at this point I don't even care. I tried using screen tones for this comic, making it look a bit like a manga. This is the very first time I did that and I struggled a lot. I had no idea what was going on, I didn't know how to add screen tones, didn't know which one I should use, and I should have looked up a tutorial. In the end, I just added the screen tones by pressing this little button in CSP. You really shouldn't see my layers to this comic, they are a complete mess. I'm very sure that I messed up a lot of layers and have inconsistent screen tones. I also think I should have spent more time with the line art since this is not colored and the lines have to carry the art more. Still, I would like to print this one day to see how it looks. It was also really fun to experiment with grayscale only. It was very important to me to have backgrounds in this comic. For a comic artist who has drawn comics since kindergarten, I religiously avoided drawing backgrounds and I realized that I have to face this fear of mine if I want to become a better comic artist. The backgrounds in this comic are really not that complex. I mainly used a lot of Clip Studio assets, but having a background, even just a simple one, really does make a difference, so I am glad that I made the extra effort. I'm really proud of the ambient lighting and the atmosphere. I think the emotions are well shown and I love drawing facial expressions and emotions so much. What I also wanted to try out was to tell a story without using dialogue, to really slow down the pacing and emphasize on the emotions. I really wanted to get the scene right where they fall into the water. Do you think it worked? Also, wow, that water looks so good. I just drew thin crescents and smeared them, but that was really effective. I think the perspectives could be a bit more varied to make the comic look more interesting, but it's okay for now. I also really want to experiment more with my paneling. While I prefer traditional paneling over the typical webtoon scroll format, I think that a lot of webtoon artists are so creative with the scroll format and this really inspires me to step up my paneling game. The manga Atelier of Witch Hat is supposed to be a great example for interesting traditional paneling and I really want to check it out at one point. And here's the finished comic. Let's see the comic in all its glory. That's it for now. How do you like this video? I know this is not really the typical kind of videos that I do, but I really just like talking about the things I enjoy. It was one of my main ideas when I was thinking about creating a YouTube channel, so I will probably make more videos like this ones from time to time. I also plan on more videos about the Wacom series, so stay tuned. You can find this comic on my social media, I will link it below. Even if I had a lot of problems with the process, I still really enjoyed making this Gideon the Ninth comic, and I really love how it turned out. I really want to make some more small comic projects to improve, and of course I will continue to work on my webcomic. Thank you so much for watching this. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like or subscribing to see more. See you in the next video. Bye!